Welcome to the Wellness for Women show, where we talk about life, weight loss and everything in between. I'm Faye, founder of the AAA Way Life and Weight Loss Programme, and I'm here to help you put together the pieces of life and weight loss for one last time. This is an episode of the Wellness for Women show, filmed live in the free Facebook group. Hello, and welcome to a special bonus episode of the Wellness for Women show. And in today's session, I'm going to be talking to the fabulous Melanie Stevens. Welcome, Melanie. Thank you for being here with us. Melanie is a spiritual mentor, and I can never say Reiki, so you might have to correct me on that. Reiki Master and tarot expert as well, aren't you? And this is really the first time we've had a 5-second chat, if that, before coming live. And Melanie and I are just going to have a chit chat basically and just kind of see, you know, obviously we're coming at wellness and life from the same but yet different kind of perspectives, and just basically just going to see where we land, aren't we, Melanie?
We are indeed.
Fabulous. And so again, quick introduction time, because although I'm going live in the group and obviously everybody in here hopefully by now knows me, this will go out onto the podcast and onto YouTube. So quick introduction time from me. I am Faye. I'm a certified life coach, and I specialize in life and weight loss with love rather than restrictive methods. And I've got my own unique method for doing that. So that's a very quick overview of me. But like I say, I'm just really interested in life and how people tick. And so I'm really looking forward to hearing more about you. So do you want to give us a little bit of an introduction into yourself, Melanie, and what you do and how you do it?
Yeah, of course. So I'm a spiritual mentor, Reiki Master and tarot reader, and I work with my clients delivering Reiki. You did say it right, is Reiki, because a lot of people call it Reiki.
Just too many vowels in there for me.
It is Reiki. You got it spot on. So I do Reiki with my clients, but as I've adapted the Reiki session to be more of a healing package, because what I like doing is doing the Reiki for people, but not just sending them off on their own merry way. I like to continue the conversation. I want to stay close to them. I want to check in with them, see how they're getting on, because the Reiki can continue to work after the session. So I've made it into a package. I've created some meditations incorporating something called the Sedona method, which is like a psychological spiritual tool to help release from unwanted, unpleasant emotions. And that's more often than not what people come to me for in the first place, to have the Reiki. So they can continue to use that meditation every day, to listen to it, or as it, you know, in the moment when they're feeling those unpleasant emotions come up, because sometimes when we have healing, it brings stuff to the surface that needs to be felt and then released. So it can be a little bit uncomfortable, but that helps people through. And then I also give them a workbook so they can journal how they're feeling and really be aware of what's coming up after the session that they might need to reflect on and look at and heal from. So that's the Reiki package, but I also do tarot readings, providing spiritual guidance, not just using the tarot, but with anything that comes through from my spirit guides at the time. And I do courses. I've got a crystals course out on Udemy, and I'm currently writing a course in shadow work. So it's all based on that kind of self-development, self-awareness, and healing from uncomfortable stuff that comes up for all of us every now and again in life.
Yeah, but I think this is why I wanted to bring you on and have a chat, because I mean, for starters, I do have a little bit of an interest in tarot cards and angel cards, and I've got some sets, and sometimes I pull them out, you know, if I'm just feeling a little bit stuck. And so I can't profess to being necessarily a overly spiritual person or anything like that, but I do, you know, not like yourself, but I do like the awareness that they can bring me, because for me, my method is about gathering awareness, taking action, and being accountable for that action. So it's the AAA way, and so awareness is a big part of that, and self-development and mindfulness, and obviously with the weight loss as well, emotional eating is probably quite prevalent for most overeaters. And so it is about working on all of these things with that love and curiosity and kindness for ourselves. So I think there's quite an alignment there in terms of what we do.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a lot of people who they might not be a tarot reader, but a lot of people have an oracle card deck or an angel deck or
Mhm.
something that every now and again they just feel like, you know what, I just feel like I need some guidance. And our spirit guides are
Mhm.
working with us all the time, trying to get messages through. So you
Mhm.
can ask them, help me to choose a card from one of the decks I've got that has a message that I need to hear
Mhm.
today. What do I need to know today? What do I need to be aware of? And
Mm.
some of us meditate and get messages through from our guides that way. Some people pick a card and they read it, and the message usually really resonates. Whichever one you're drawn to for a reason, because somebody is helping drawing you to that card, because
Mm.
you need to read that message today, or your friend will ring you and say something to you that you just needed to hear that day, because it's all sort of brought to us for our own
Mm.
highest good.
Yeah, and and I say I find it very interesting how when I say pulled a card or something like that, and again just that awareness that it can bring me just to spark something. It's like almost like a creative spark that it can bring along. Or very occasionally, because I'd say most of the time it does seem to resonate when I pull something out. But even when it doesn't, I think even that is because sometimes you have to discount what you don't need to hear just as much as what you do, isn't it?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Which decks have you got? Do you remember?
I can tell you. I have them
Ah.
down here. I have a little box of goodies. I have got. Oh, they're all broken, so I'm going to make a right racket for the purposes of this podcast. I can always edit it out. I have got the Rebecca Campbell Work Your Light.
Oh yeah, lovely.
And the Soul Truth Self-Awareness card deck.
I haven't heard of that one.
And then I've got these ones don't really, I've not figured out these ones. These were fortune cards, and then a tarot deck, and then some other just general things. But these two are really quite pretty.
Number one, I've got her the Starseed Oracle, but the Work Your Light is the same sort of imagery, really beautiful decks.
Yeah, they're just beautiful to look at, if nothing else. And I do, I'm quite quite crafty as well, and I like sort of artwork and that kind of thing. So therefore, they're pleasing as well, aren't they? To just
Yeah.
look at the workmanship that goes into the artwork, if nothing else. So yeah. Do you use oracle cards as well then for your readings, or?
Yeah, more often than not, I use tarot because I learned how to read the tarot traditionally. So for my readings I give to other people, I bring the tarot in. I do have multiple decks. I'm not gonna tell you how many because it's
My
embarrassing.
two is poultry, is what you're telling me.
Let's just say it's more than 20 and leave it there. I've got lots of tarot decks. I do have Oracle as well, because for me, sometimes I like to pull a card for myself. And because I know how to read the tarot, sometimes it feels like someone else is reading to me if I use Oracle, because I don't use it every single day. And it's so tarot cards, I can close my eyes and ask my guides to show me an image I need to see today and know what card it's from. Oracle, sometimes, especially a new Oracle deck, I think, oh, that feels like somebody else is reading for me because I'm unfamiliar with it, which is nice. But when I'm reading for others, yeah, it's the trusty tarot for me.
Yeah, interesting. And so one thing that I've been working a bit on lately in my own journey, because at the end of the day, I'm still on my own weight loss journey. So again, I don't know whether I told you this when we were messaging to say, hey, let's have this chat. But how I came into doing what I do is because I went on a weight loss journey. Basically, pretty much think that I spent 40 years of my life with my head in the sand somewhere. And I arrived at 40, probably fresh with a midlife crisis, decided that I'd give the whole weight loss thing a go. But that's how I properly found mindfulness and life coaching. And I ended up losing over 70 pounds through an intuitive eating style method. And then I was like, wow, why have I been trying to restrict myself for all of these? Why have I been beating myself up for, 20 plus years about weight and weight loss and whatnot? Why, everybody needs to know about weight loss with love and intuitive eating methods and that kind of thing. But what I've been doing, what we sort of tap into a little bit in coaching, but of course coaching is more about forward focus rather than necessarily going back. But I have been diving lately a little bit into subconscious work. And so I'm wondering what your thoughts are with regards to how the subconscious fits into sort of the spirituality, but also What else was I going to say to you a moment ago? Yeah, just sort of how you feel subconscious. And I know that you said you were doing something about shadow work. And if I'm honest, I don't know. My belief on it is that shadow work links to the subconscious, but I don't know. And so I'd like to know whether it does.
Yeah, it absolutely does. So the shadow self is the repressed parts of us that we have hidden from view. So when we grow up, our parents and our teachers teach us how to behave, and we are perhaps encouraged to behave in certain ways, like being good and being polite and being kind to other people, and we're punished, or we are embarrassed or treated differently, ignored, put on the naughty step, what have you, when we behave in ways that are deemed socially unacceptable or not loving and things like that. So we can push certain parts of our character down into what's known as the shadow. So the stroppy part of us, the angry part. Very often we're not encouraged to be angry as children because it's seen as, oh no, you can't, that's not likable, that's not lovable. So we grow up feeling like, oh, I'm starting to feel angry. Oh no, I'm not allowed to feel angry, that's bad. And we push these parts of us down into our subconscious. Also things like, little boys can be told not to cry, not to show emotion, so they push that sensitive part down into their shadow. Girls of my age were told to be, little girls should be seen and not heard, and we weren't encouraged to be strong and assertive and ambitious and show that leadership, because in my era, thankfully things are changing.
21 like me, right?
Yeah. So that natural leadership ability, it's not all bad stuff that's in the shadow. It can be stuff that would have been amazing. Courage, bravery, taking risks. No, you mustn't do that. You've got to be sensible. These things get pushed down and suppressed over such a long time that we forget they even exist. But they do exist. They live in the subconscious, and every now and again they try and come up because they're a normal part of being human.
Yeah.
We still try and push them down, and then that can sabotage us. It can make us sick. It can get us stressed out. If we don't allow our anger out, for example, it can make us ill, and it can lead to other problems in our life because we feel like we're not allowed to be angry, and yet we probably don't even know why, because it's ingrained in us and programmed in us from childhood. So shadow work is about integrating those parts, and that doesn't mean we all go around shouting and screaming at people all the time, but it's just recognizing that anger is a part of being human. Having a massive strop is a part of being human. All of these things, as a man, showing emotion, it's part of being human, but we've buried them, usually due to our surroundings and circumstances. By bringing it up and integrating the shadow and showing some love to those parts of ourselves that maybe we feel ashamed of because we've been taught to be ashamed of them, makes us feel more whole and more complete, and it stops these buried parts from trying to come up and actually sabotaging us when we just allow them.
Yeah,
very much linked to the subconscious.
And it does link in again with what I do and teach as well, because again it's all part and can be part of mindfulness as well. And also sometimes we'll talk about rewriting stories. So again, from a food and a weight loss point of view, we were told to clear our plates, and we would, you brought up thinking that, if you're going to have a sandwich, I automatically think if I'm going to have a sandwich, it automatically should come with a packet of crisps and a can of pop, because we were lunchbox kids for starters, and then also as well, like you've got all your meal deals that are still out there now as well, so we get a lot of food stories and food relationships that we have to address as well. And some of that, again, like you say, is subconscious, because if we go around burying our thoughts, feelings and emotions, like I said I did pretty much for good 40, going around thinking that anger was bad. I had all these thoughts and feelings with regards to thoughts and feelings, and that I should and shouldn't have these things. And it was in doing some of the work that you do through life coaching, mindfulness and that kind of thing, that I've been able to let go of those, and like say, kind of bring myself together and find myself and find a whole person.
Yeah, exactly. It's all down to our programming, and nobody's sort of purposely programmed us to cause us stress and pain. They've been programmed themselves. Our teachers, our parents, our siblings, we've all been programmed by our society, by our culture, by the media and our upbringing and everything else. It's only when you stop to question these things. Why am I still trying to clear my plate? I'm full up. Why am I still eating? And then you remember, well, that's because was brought up to do that. I wasn't allowed to leave the table till I'd sat and eaten, even if I was really full up. And you can just question that, like, why am I doing this? And then change once you've realized that it must be such an unconscious habit to do the things that we've been so programmed to do that we don't even know we're programmed.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what my program is partly about as well, is finding those, but specifically with regards to food and food stories and like I say, the life element as well, because you don't realize how much you are doing at that subconscious level, and it's bringing it to the fore one way or another. Because again, that's the thing for me, is that I don't mind how I've got methods that I can teach, but we can pull on other modalities as well to get awareness and deepen awareness in one area or whatever it is that we need to work on. Because again, we're all uniquely us, aren't we? And we need to find our own unique paths to our end goals.
And certain things resonate more with certain people and certain things resonate with different people, but there is something out there for everybody that can help them, I believe. And, do you find as well that with the words that are used around weight loss, smoking, anything where people are trying to change, that if we use language that suggests we're missing out on something, like giving something up, stop doing this, lose weight and all of that, do you find that has an adverse effect rather than using positive language? Yeah. So it doesn't feel like you're giving something up, because if you feel like you're not allowed something, that makes me want it even more.
Absolutely. Yeah, which is why we aim for sort of working on a weight loss method without restriction, really. So again, weight loss is a funny thing to explain, because obviously we all know that there is a scientific in and out that needs to happen, but it can happen in so many different ways. But we've been brought up again with the diet industry programming us all over the years about calories in and out and this kind of thing. Or if you've ever been to a weight loss club, you've got all of that dialogue still running through your head, but not one of the ones that I ever went to helped me to fathom life at the same time, because it is how the pair of them go together. And I talk about it a lot in my inner circle with my members. We were talking about it at the weekend. So again, rather than saying, well, I can't have something, it's more about, well, what do I choose to give myself today? So you could look at, perhaps if you were going to look to try to reduce something or just work on that, because again, it's just about playing about, getting curious about your relationship with everything. But you can either go into that and say to yourself, I can't have things, I shouldn't do this, I shouldn't do that. Or you could say, well, I'm choosing to do this with love. And you make your whys are so much more powerful if you make them positive. So rather than sort of saying, if I don't do this, my health's going to suffer, wouldn't it be a lot better to say, if I do this, I will give myself the gift of health? And you're kind of still doing the same thing, but one's bringing more positivity to it. And which one are you going to sustain? The one that feels good. And so a big part of my message is about ditching the diet drama and finding more joy, because bringing in that positivity is what's going to give it the longevity.
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting, like the words that we use. And I actually did an experiment recently. I put it on my Facebook and my TikTok. I don't know if you've heard of the rice experiment. I hear that they're teaching this in schools now. And it's where you cook some rice. So the rice is cooked and then it's split into 2 equal sized jars. And one of the jars is you stick a label on it saying love, and the other one you stick a label on it saying hate. And then I know it sounds a bit strange and it feels a bit strange, I've got to be honest, but you speak every day, you pick the jar up and you say loving words to one of the jars, put that down and pick the other jar up and you say hateful words to the other jar, and you keep the jars apart, like, a foot apart. And after a little while, the people that I was hearing about doing this experiment were noticing that the hate jar that they'd been saying nasty things to was starting to mold, and the other jar wasn't. Really interesting. I did this experiment and neither of my jars showed any mold, and I thought I'd done it wrong, because I thought, well, I find it difficult to say bad things, even though I'm talking to like rice. I find it difficult to say unpleasant things, and I thought, oh, I've not done it right. So I went to chuck the rice away. And when I opened the lid to the love jar. It smelled quite nice. When I opened the lid to the hate jar, it absolutely stunk. It was really, really strong. So much as the experiment didn't quite go as I was expecting, because I couldn't see the mold on the hate jar, it still impacted it, and I could smell the difference. And it really made me aware to actually do the experiment rather than reading about it and seeing it or noticing that difference. Made me realize, oh my God, my words have got so much power in them. They can actually do that. So what's it doing to me if I'm using words to myself, if I'm berating myself or beating myself up about something? And the same with somebody trying to lose weight. If you're giving yourself grief for it, you know, it can affect your health. It's so important to use really gentle, loving language to ourselves while we're moving through any sort of change, because you know, it can really have an impact, just the words we use to talk to ourselves and other people, of course.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, that's an interesting experiment. It sounds really surprising that could happen, isn't it? But you know, everybody should go out there and try the rice experiment, feed back to us, let us know what happens. But certainly the words and what we use, very true, isn't it? I mean, at the end of the day, you know, all of the psychology, it's based on the ego, and the ego will, got a friend of mine, Kathy, who's in the group, who gave me a great talk once with regards to the ego and the adult and child. She's a counsellor, and how the ego still wants its fuzzies, I think she called her. I can't remember. She'll have to perhaps come and set me straight on it. But that you ultimately can feed your ego with the negative or the positive, and the ego doesn't mind which it take. It will just take it. But the more you feed it one, the more it will believe it. I think in one of my advisors in my membership as well, on the why work, there's a again, I'm going to butcher the phrasing because I've got a terrible memory, but there's a proverb or something like that about, you know, which of the wolves would survive. Well, it'll be the one that you feed, you know. And again, if you just think about it in terms of that, you know, that you can, if you're feeding the negative all the time, then you're just going to breed. And this is why we have sayings like negativity breeds negativity and all these kind of things, isn't it? You know, because it is true. That is what will happen. And so I do a lot in my own is to try and equal that airtime, you know, in terms of the thoughts. And if I notice what's coming, you know, that I'm having a particularly difficult patch, then I will obviously step up my self-care game and try and bring in that positivity and the mindfulness and other modalities that I use. So I've just been experimenting with emotional freedom technique. Sometimes I might draw out the tarot cards or the oracle cards, you know, just to try and get me back onto that even keel.
Yeah, I've used EFT actually. I like EFT because that works with the meridians, which are used in Chinese acupuncture. And yeah, I had some really good results with it. And I think for me, I notice my thoughts get more negative when I'm tired, when my energy levels are low, when I'm stressed, when I'm run down. And obviously I've got Reiki, so I know, right, I need to do the work on myself. It's all right doing it with other people. I think as a practitioner, it's very easy to forget you have to look after yourself first. Even though I preach this all the time.
I'm pretty sure every single person who's going to come on and visit the Wellness for Women show will say something similar, because, you know, again, if there's gurus out there saying, oh yes, I live this perfect life, do this, that and the other, you know, yeah, right, okay. You know, it'd be like me saying that I'll never have a weight gain. Of course I'm human.
Yeah, one thing I was doing for a while with my thinking, generally I'm a positive thinker, but when I'm struggling with my energy, when I'm working too much, which I have a really bad habit of doing, that's when I notice that my mental health is declining, when I start catastrophizing and I start imagining awful things happening, which I've read is like a defense mechanism. It's like your mind is trying to prepare you for something really terrible to happen, so it's not so much of a shock, which is crazy. Why don't you just imagine something good happening? It's much nicer. So what I started doing was journaling at the end of each day. Did I have any negative thoughts today, and did I catch them? And the more I journaled that at night, the following day I'd remember journaling it, and I'd be a little bit more aware of my thoughts, and I'd start to notice it happening, stop it in the moment. Instead of imagining something really bad happening, like I'm about to cross a busy road and I start visualizing me like being hit by a truck, why don't you just imagine you're going to cross the road and you're not going to die and everything's going to be okay? And so I'd
instead.
It's
it's
stop myself and flip it and think of something much nicer. It's just the awareness that you're doing it.
It is, yeah. And when I started out on my journey, I scoffed that I didn't have anything. I didn't have thoughts. There was nothing to be aware of. And that's actually when that was the first fatal mistake to make, because it was just like I'd buried my thoughts and feelings so deep that I didn't know I had them. But once you start to hear these things, and I think sometimes people worry that it's going to uncover like Pandora's box, and you'll never be able to get it all back in again. But actually, it is so therapeutic, and it does change. I mean, my relationship with myself has changed hugely from that work, and the work that you were just suggesting there, like the work, I don't know whether you call it worry tree, but again, I've got a friend, we call it the worry tree, is one of those exercises. And again, it's just sort of bringing it to your conscious brain is then where you can do that whole stepping into action part of the process, isn't it? Because then you can go, oh, then I don't like that. I don't want to keep that anymore. So what can I do about it? And I do love a good detective program as well. So like, this is the big thing with me, is about curiosity and like being the detective of your own life and just figuring out, well, where did that come from? You know, and is that something that I want to keep? And how can I change that? But there's a lot that comes into what you were saying there, just sort of getting those thoughts out and onto paper, and journaling especially. And I did an episode on journaling, again, just so much more powerful. You know, it's just better to be out than in sometimes, you know, whether that be journaling, coaching, coming and talking to yourself and having some healing, going to a counsellor, you know, whatever it is, whatever works for you is transformational, isn't it? And that's what we want for all of our clients, is to get them that transformation.
Yeah, and then once you've recognized that you're doing things by journaling or whatever method you use, then you've got the choice, you know, instead of worrying, oh, well, I've just written down that I'm having really negative thoughts. Well, how is that help? Because now you're aware it's happening, you'll notice it happening, you can stop it happening, and you can choose a different, you reframe your thought, you can choose a different thought. So it's not to write it down to make you realize that, you know, you're a bad person or anything like that. It's just it's a very normal human response sometimes to stress and to life. When life gets a bit stressy and a bit busy, or we've got things going on, we start with negative thoughts, and it just makes you more aware of your own mental state, your own energy. It's awareness is that first step, isn't it? Because once you're aware, you can, yeah,
absolutely, always the first step. And again, like you say, from there you can take back that control and find your power again, isn't it? Because you're going to have these thoughts anyway, and we can't stop the thoughts from coming, because they will come in. But we can, well, I mean, sometimes we can help a little bit. So again, this is where self-care can come into it, isn't it? Because if you gather awareness about yourself, and you know that you tend to have more negative thoughts when you're tired, well, then maybe we need to step up the self-care game in terms of like making sure that we work on our sleep and our sleep hygiene. Or, you know, some people might find that if they have large meals of an evening, that they end up with nightmares or cheese dreams. I find that if I have red meat, I tend to not sleep very well. And pizza, but I still love pizza. So, you know, sometimes you make your choices as to what you want to do. But at least, again, you're getting that power back, aren't you? You know, and being able to take control and make that choice. And that is part of stepping into your personal power when you deal with some of these things, I think.
Yeah, it is power. It's empowering. It's not designed to make you think, oh God, I've got all this work to do. Because actually, healing yourself, it shouldn't be complicated. It shouldn't be difficult. It's really about awareness, bringing love in, and making changes. It's all it is. Making the changes to be the person you want to be, and to bring into your life what you want to bring in through positive, you know, self-love and self-care. And that's not to say that we should bypass the unpleasant feelings or anything like that, because sometimes they're trying to tell us something. So I think glossing over them isn't what I'm suggesting either. It's just exploring them. For me, catastrophizing brings me nothing good at all. It's not warning me about something that's actually likely to happen. It's something that's incredibly unlikely to happen that then puts me in a spin. So I think I don't actually need to do anything with that other than reframe my thoughts and do something else. if I'm feeling angry about something and I just think, oh no, that's uncomfortable, I don't want to feel that, then I'm just bypassing something that needs to be explored. So, sometimes you do need to dig these things up and think, okay, well, why am I feeling angry? Well, actually, I've got really bad boundaries and I'm not saying no enough. So, okay, I'll start doing that and explore sometimes why we get these unpleasant, uncomfortable feelings. We can't say, oh, I'm never going to have another negative thought ever again, no matter how much
they will come by themselves. But the decision is, do I want to just let them keep coming and coming and coming and not dealing with those, which then can, like say, in our circumstances, if you're overweight and perhaps need to work on weight loss or wanting to work on weight loss, that's when you find that you end up with your effort moments in your weight loss journey and all that kind of thing. But so actually, again, how I teach it is not weight loss. It's not about the food. It's not about the how. It's actually what's kind of getting you to that point in the first place, because often it's something that's happened before. And again, I always think that you've got 3 opportunities to change something. You've got before, so again, knowing yourself well enough to know when and anticipating that something could come up. So, I'm going in from a meeting with my boss today. That's something that has a tendency to make me want to eat biscuits or something. Then you know, and you know that you can take steps then to take it, or about trying to catch those thoughts or those behaviours whilst you're in the moment, and then again after it having that self-reflection to then learn from anything that's happened.
Yeah, no, I like that, because you do have opportunities, and if you miss the first one, there's always going to be another one.
There's always another opportunity. But again, the negative Annie in us would be like, there isn't, I've blown it, so again, if you ever worked on weight loss, it would be a case of, oh well, I've blown it and I've done, I'm useless, I'm this, I'm that, the other, we're then just feeding ourselves more negativity. Whereas actually, like say, self-love and compassion and looking to just grow from each moment is where the true, again, transformation can come from, isn't it? So
I think everything starts from the inside out.
Yes,
we can't change anything on the outside until we've looked at what's happening within with anything.
Yeah, totally agree. Well, it's been absolute pleasure having a chit chat with you. I usually do try and keep these to about half an hour, although I could probably talk all night. It's quite late, and I'm sure that you'd quite like to get off. It really has been great to connect in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop Melanie's details in the descriptions below, and if you're listening on the podcast and the YouTube, then they will be probably up somewhere rather than down, but have a look around. You will find Melanie's details and my details. And if anybody's got any questions for any of us, we'll circle back round and have a look for any questions in the group over the coming weeks. Okie dokie. Well, I'm going to love you and leave you. Did you want to say anything else, Melanie, before we go?
Just thank you so much for chatting with me tonight. It's been lovely meeting you as well, because obviously this is the first time we've met. So
yeah, I know. Yeah, great. Indeed. Thanks for listening. And don't forget, if you want to boost your life and weight loss the AAA way, check out the relevant links for today's show in the description. Speak soon.